What's going on, everybody? Eric Winquist at Stokastic here on the Odd Trapper channel, coming to you with a Monday edition of NBA Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks. Hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell. Goes a long way for me on this video. Goes a long way for you. That way you become apprised whenever great content is going live here at our little neck of the YouTube woods. Broke down a lot of NFL goodness. Let's break down some NBA goodness here as well and get the party started, because it has not been very pretty for me after a smash of first 2 weeks. Last 2 weeks have not been up to par by my standards, by your standards. And yeah, obviously I'm putting money on the line. You can see my betting tickets whenever you want, posting them all the time over on X, talking about everything, posting whenever I have a bet go live over in Tails. We'll talk about that here in a little bit at the halfway point of our show, but I'm ready to rock. We have 8 games here on Monday's slate, and, well, there's not a whole lot else to add. I have to be better, and I will be better. This is my best betting sport. This is the sport I feel the most confident about. This is the sport where I've constantly, year in, year out, smashed for ROI. So it's about time to get that train rolling here for the people. So I think this card came together pretty darn easily. I don't know what that means. I just know the producer Jacob is ready to rock. I am too. Let's get to the picks. Number 1, Chicago taking on Detroit, and Chicago got completely blitzkrieg there on Sunday. My God, they're going to be on a back-to-back here, and there was some interesting stuff going on with a number of these games on Sunday, and I think as we continue to talk through it, we'll discuss it. Houston will be on a back-to-back here as well, but they win 143-107. Chicago is playing at a breakneck speed right now, and defensively, they have nothing that they can do. And I mean, you ran into Vooch being a negative 35 in plus minus in just 25 minutes. That's really hard to do. Alperen Şengün made him his little bitch boy. It was pretty wild to watch. As for Kobe White, Zach LaVine, Josh Giddey, I think we can all agree that that is not the most defensively forward unit the NBA has ever seen in their lifetime. But it's Detroit on the other side, and Detroit has been a hard read. Purely, I mean, I think that they're a lot better than I think the industry has thought about for quite some time, that the market is basically appreciating them for. Talked about that quite at length before we came into the season, but at the same time, we're seeing the dividends of that, and now it's starting to be expressed in the marketplace. What do I mean by that? I mean that Detroit is 9-5-1 against the spread on the season, whereas Chicago 6-8. I think they've been overvalued to some extent, but what I'm saying is Detroit is generally a spot where I'd want to land on here, and it's not really showing up. We also have a disparity because Chicago playing to a lot of these extreme blowouts. If you had put $100 on them for every game throughout the entire season, 9-5-0. So talking over under, they're 9 times towards the over on their games, 5 times towards the, again, we're talking closing lines on those. You'd be up 4 units basically taking overs specifically on Chicago games, or close to that. It's 3.6 if we're being honest, because VIG, it's a thing. But my point is that I'm still leaning towards this over, despite the fact that that is not the MO here of Detroit. They're 5-10 towards the under. We're talking 4.5 units that you would be up betting unders of every single one of their games based on their closing lines. I think that has me just leaning towards 231.5. And as I ran this game through the Sims multiple times, because of how bad defensively Josh Giddey is in 25 plus minutes, it's not going to look good. But on a back-to-back, do they potentially have Ayo Dosunmu play some more minutes? Maybe. I mean, they're having Buzelis, they're having Julian Phillips, they're having a lot of these guys where every single player on the Chicago Bulls played double-digit minutes. Do you know how insane that is to have 15 guys on your roster and have every single one play double-digit minutes in a game on Sunday? Absurd stuff. They are so terrible. They're only 5-9, but 1-5 at home. Congratulations, Chicago. You're terrible. You're going to be on the road in this one. 231.5, just a lean. Not a ton standing out here, but got to tell you, injury news on these back-to-backs, be paying very close attention. Anything could really happen. Wouldn't surprise me. So both of those teams here on a back-to-back, and now we have Philly and Miami. Nice to have it, nice and straight up. What is it? Straight up. What's that from? It's like a Bond villain or something. But anyway, we got Philly plus 3.5 taking on Miami. Tons of injury news, specifically Joel Embiid. Will he or won't he? I think we're going to be saying that a lot this season, which kind of makes it frustrating to handicap a lot of these Philly games. I can't really tell you a ton before we have, I don't know, he's questionable with an illness. Like, what am I even supposed to do with that? As for Jimmy Butler, he had the right ankle sprain from a couple of games. Don't know if he ends up showing up here, but he is questionable in the injury report. Jaime Jaquez doubtful. And I think that at least adds some potential value to try to back the Miami side, because I do think when you have things just randomly popping up on an injury report on the Joel Embiid side of things, you'd lean towards him being out. And Jimmy Butler, been out for the last couple, like strictly out. Well, this one leads me more towards him being in. If you assume that this is efficient right now, and you assume that I could get Jimmy Butler playing and potentially Joel Embiid sitting, I'd want to bet 3.5. I don't feel 100% that way, though, and that's the thing. We're starting off with two leans, two things that are not bets for me right now. I have to repeat that for the people. They're not bets right now. They're things I'm thinking about betting and trying to give you my informed decision-making, but we're talking about one of the most impactful players when healthy in the league in Joel Embiid, and an impactful player when healthy on the other side with Jimmy Butler. I think you have to just take that at face value, but based on injury trends, leaning towards Miami. Don't bet it for right now, though. Now we have 8 games here, and it's like, Eric, give me some plays. Give me the things that you're not just leaning. Well, these next 2 ones are lean likes. One I have bet, one I have not. This one, I can't even bet if I wanted to because it's not available yet, but using recent trends, using what we have coming from the last couple weeks, informs a lot of my prop making decisions. And Washington taking on the Knicks here, we're going to get a high pace matchup, speed up pace matchup for the New York side, because purely we know that Washington the last couple of years, they've played way up in pace, and this season, not very different. They're 4th in the NBA, despite being, 2-10 now on the year? They played today, so let me double check. Carry the 1, 9, 4. Yeah, no, whatever. They're absolutely terrible. They got dismantled by Detroit. They're 2-10 on the year. Yeah, no, exactly. Why do I second guess myself sometimes? It's whatever. Because I want to be exacting for you. But as for the Knicks, we're seeing Karl Anthony Towns play through the questionable injury tag here. He sat out on Friday, put an entire rotation into disarray. You saw OG Anunoby and Josh Hart play really nicely there. Jalen Brunson had a decent finish to that game in the fourth quarter, but what I'm getting at here is Washington taking on the Knicks. 14 points. We're not going to get near that whatsoever in the Garden, but both these teams going to be on a back-to-back in this spot. It's a little bit frustrating because I think if you made me take one of those sides, I'd be looking at Washington. If you made me take anything on the total, I'd be looking at the under, but I'm not going to be looking at the under primarily because Karl Anthony Towns continues to break my model when it comes to points and rebounds. Look at it this way. Opening night, Karl Anthony Towns, when we played a half unit on his points plus rebounds, he was at 27.5. On Sunday, he played through his Q tag, 37.5. We're talking 10 more points plus rebounds because Karl Anthony Towns is playing for Tom Thibodeau. He has no regard for human life. He will play his guys 40 plus minutes, even on this back-to-back. I think it's got me a little bit nervous. And again, this hasn't shown up. I want to see what this line is at, but at a breakneck speed, I'm expecting 36.5, 37.5 as the opening number here against the likes of Alex Sarr and frickin' Jonas Valanciunas there at the center position. Cat should continue to smash. Offensively, he's been one of the best offensive players. Sad for my Minnesota Timberwolves, but he is so awful when it comes to the old defense that, there's some give and take here. But Karl Anthony Towns, I'm looking at an adjusted line of 40 plus points plus rebounds. If this opens at 37.5 minus 110, it's a play for me at a half unit. If it opens at 38.5 minus 104 or better, it's a play. Anything worse than that probably won't be, and that's sad to me because I think Karl Anthony Towns dismantles Washington on Monday. Indy at Toronto. Indy 3.5 point favorites on the road here. And this one, I've had some interesting modeling discrepancies. Now, I do have a friend that I go back and forth with a lot, and I've never really talked about him here on this program, but he's one of the sharpest NBA bettors, I think, on planet Earth. And we try to set lines, and we try to specifically go back and forth and see where we're different. Because I think one of the most important things you can do with a friend when it comes to the betting side of things, I do it with Greg Ehrenberg on the DFS side every single day on Live Before Lock, Monday through Friday, but we're basically talking through what do we agree on, what do we disagree on, and we kind of had a major disagreement today when it comes to the Toronto side. I think they're a lot worse than what he does. He has RJ Barrett kind of evaluated as above average NBA player. I'm not sure how much far above the average mean of an NBA player. I mean, he gets more usage. He has the assist rate that's been going berserk in the absence of Emmanuel Quickly, which is what we continue to see time and time again here. Now, Davion Mitchell going to be out there. Grady Dick offensively has been knocking down shots, but does that continue? I'm not sure that it does. And Emmanuel Quickly out. Bruno Fernando going to be out for this one. We don't talk about Bruno. No. Kelly Olynyk going to still be out for another 3 games. Bruce Brown, Scotty Barnes. I mean, there are some massively important players that are going to be out for this game. I get why Indy is sitting with, the favoritism here. Now, we went back and forth and we evaluated each specific player. We're simming out stuff 10,000 times to see exactly how many times certain players end up optimal in terms of DFS, and then in a betting sense, who is truly going to be getting more of this usage. I do think this comes down to how you feel about Tyrese Halliburton, because if you go back to 2023 sample size for Tyrese Halliburton, I would be on the Indy side of this one, no questions asked. But he pointed out a couple of things that I think are fantastic when it comes to Toronto. One, Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl has been the dude, and they're playing through him more and more and more. And if that continues, he's an above-average NBA talent. There is no doubt in my mind. And that is something that they should have been doing from the get-go this season. I mean, he heads to San Antonio and then comes back to Toronto during his tenure here. I mean, Jakob Poeltl has one of the strangest NBA careers, but he goes to Boston and he lays the smackdown. 35-12 there in the overtime period. 126-123 loss by Toronto in that one, but not by any fault of Jakob Poeltl. He has been extremely effective, extremely efficient, and now you don't have Isaiah Jackson there for this season in Indy. You're going to get backup minutes for Obi Toppin. You're going to get backup minutes at the 5 for a lot of unknowns that exist there. I mean, Pascal Siakam, Miles Turner, we know that they can both play the 5 and be efficient there, and Pascal Siakam heading back to Toronto, his former team, but I spent so much time evaluating this one that I had to put a small play on this. Now, it goes against my model, which is the only reason that I'm putting lean like for this one. But I think Toronto is worth a play at plus 3.5 here. As just talking through it here, Tyrese Halliburton has been so bad in 2024. I think his shoulder is still screwed up for what it's worth. And I'm an Iowa State guy. I wish it wasn't that way, but this is one of those undervalued spots here where I think you're going to look back in the rear view. And if Indy hadn't made the Eastern Conference Finals last season, I think we'd be talking about them a little bit differently than we've been in the early portion of this season. So despite the records, despite everything that goes, in my mind, towards the Indy side, and that's what my model has, I think Toronto plus 3.5, the sharp side of this one. The sharp side of anything is hanging out in tails where I can give you all those plays. I can give you all that data. I can talk through everything. We have Pick'em on the left. We have Sportsbooks on the right. We have Rebet at the very bottom there. That is a sweepstakes book available in 46 of the 50 states in the United States, including California. Awesome opportunity for you to sign up at any one of these, whether it's Bet365, damn good fine. Why don't I sock it to you one more time? You have 11 states where you can sign up for that. We have Pick 6 where you can bet 5, get 50. We have Vivid Picks where it's bet 10, get 200. Tons of amazing deals throughout the industry at Pick'em on the left, Sportsbooks on the right. And all you have to do is follow 4 simple steps right here on your screen. Take screenshots of your welcome email and first settle bet and support at oddshopper.com. That's where you send the screenshots to get 1 month of my Discord. Yes, $50 value, completely free, in addition to all of those great sportsbooks and Pick'em offers. Only if you're 21 and over. If you have a gambling problem, please call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Back to the picks we go. We're at the halfway portion of this program. Hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell as we start breaking down a little bit of weirdness here. Houston, Milwaukee, and Houston put the gauntlet down. Absolute smash of Chicago there on a Sunday. But one game does not a team make. One game does not in evaluating make. And Milwaukee, we're still going to be without a number of major pieces. Ryan Rollins, Chris Middleton, but getting Damian Lillard, the second most important piece on this entire team, back into the equation. And that, friends, has me very, very interested in this basketball game from a prop perspective. First off, Damian Lillard, whenever you get a star back, I generally give them their full minutes workload or something very, very close to it, unless I hear from coaches. And the main reason is that there's a lot of money invested in these guys, and it's almost foolish, ridiculous, stupid, silly for them to bring guys back at like 50%, 75% back, even 90% back in a lot of these scenarios. it's harder with some of the ancillary bench pieces to be able to do it. I mean, look at Brandon Clark as we started to evaluate him at the beginning of the year. This is a guy who was a major stalwart in the Memphis rotation until he tears his ACL in the playoffs. Doesn't really play all of 2023-24, and then, well, comes back. Not playing nearly as many minutes, even in this starting rotation, as what you were hoping on the Memphis side of things. Kind of the way the evaluation process goes. But as you start breaking things down here, you get Damian Lillard out there. Now, Damian Lillard, not exactly known for his defense, if you ask me, and I think that's kind of shown out in every single model from here until the end of time. Dunks and threes, one of my favorite for pro basketball analysis whenever it comes to anything on that side of the court. You've got Damian Lillard playing some of the worst defense he's played in a long time. Last season, 65th percentile. He had to be better on that side of the floor because Milwaukee, they had no real other options to go to. I mean, Gary Trent Jr. kind of been sent to the shadow realm over the course of this 2024-25 season already, but we're seeing him as the 29th percentile defender so far this season. That is not what you're looking for. These are not the droids you're looking for. And as such, there's an assist rate that's going crazy for me for some of these opposing point guards. Now, I'm making an assumption. Fred VanVleet, 6.5 assists. That's kind of where we've seen a number of these last couple of props show up. And there was a blowout against Chicago, which would have sent this thing to the moon. Knocks to the moon! But Fred VanVleet, 7+ assists at even money. At even money. I think is an interesting play as a lean candidate here against Damian Lillard and company. One, you have a competitive spread. Two, you have an opportunity to have a much worse defender than you would have had the starter been Delon Wright on the other side of this one. Lots of ways where I think the possessions, I think this total is kind of interesting too. 218.5, a little bit low for my liking, but my favorite play as of now, Fred VanVleet, 7+ assists, if that's where the opening line ends up being. Again, that's assuming 6.5, even money towards the over, -120 towards the under. We'll see where the books open this one when it comes to tomorrow. Orlando. Some people know what that's from, like 4 of you maybe. SeaWorld and Disney and bye coffee. It's from the Book of Mormon. Anyway, Orlando, Phoenix, South Park creators. I mean, Parker. I mean, there's ridiculous. Anyway, we're going to put a play on this one, and we're not going to be betting on the Orlando side of things. They're starting a guy named Tristan da Silva on a day-in, day-out basis. Franz Wagner, Goga Bitadze, who's one of the better defensive backup centers that you're ever going to find in the NBA. I mean, this guy couldn't find a rotation. At the tail end of last season, which is wild because defensively, he was incredible to start off last season as well. But Wendell Carter Jr., he's doubtful for this one. Of course, Paolo Banchero still going to be out with that oblique injury for another month and a half or so, which is just so brutal for Orlando. But defensively, they continue to be top 3 in the model. That's why we have the lowest total on the entire slate at 206.5. But I like the Phoenix side of this one, considering a couple of things. One, they're playing at home, which, take it for what it is. Two, Josh Okogie's been playing way better than he did during any tenure of Minnesota. Oh, it's so frustrating when guys leave Minnesota and just get way better. I'm looking at you, Karl Anthony Towns. But Josh Okogie, he's been pretty decent here in this starting rotation for Phoenix. Been an above-average offensive player here, which I did not expect at any point of his NBA career. Ryan Dun. This is a young kid. They ended up getting signed by Nike because they recognize that there's some actual talent there. He's got to develop a jumper, got to develop that three-point game that is so crucial. But they have Grayson Allen active. They have Royce O'Neal, who's going to play massive minutes for them, even coming off the bench. Mason Plumlee as the backup center there who can close over Yusuf Nurkic if he's going out and doing his assist stuff from time to time. I think even with Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal out in this one, I think Orlando, they're playing completely through Jalen Suggs and Franz Wagner, who has to go completely nutty every single time out. But I think Phoenix is undervalued here right now at the moment. I think -124, which is where I ended up getting this, is way too good to pass up. Phoenix money line, I like it. This is kind of a hard evaluation. Atlanta on the road taking on Sacramento. Devin Carter out, nobody cares. Malik Monk, a lot of people do care. DeMar DeRozan should definitely be something you pay attention to, but Domantas Sabonis now, doubtful, and we're still seeing Sacramento as 4.5-point favorites with Trey Lyles, Doug McDermott having to play starters minutes. This is wild to me, if you ask me, purely because, one, I'm kind of a stand for Doug McDermott. His dad was the coach at Iowa State. I got to know him a little bit when I was in school. I played golf in college. Shout out me. But the whole point is that Doug McDermott is not the guy that you're looking for in the National Basketball Association to have to help guard Jalen frickin' Johnson on the other side, who, shout out Duke. He is a monster on the offensive end. I'm kind of confused how Atlanta is at plus 4.5. However, my model semi-agrees with it. It's at plus 4, which again, you're not going to be betting. And when we're talking VIG, if I have Atlanta at plus 4, it doesn't mean that that's automatically a bet because you're putting minus 110 on both sides. It generally has to be a 1.5 or greater for it to end up making my card. It has to be 2.5 points or greater to make it a lock. Now, you're not going to run into a ton of those situations here unless you knew all of the injury news. I think there's not a lot waiting and pending in this one, though. DeAndre Hunter, right knee management. I think he ends up playing in this one. He ended up playing very, 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 very minimal minutes there on Sunday. And as a result, I think we end up seeing him out there. Now, they ended up playing a game against Portland that went way, way under. You had Trae Young continue to, look all right there on the offensive end. But my whole point is that, I think we get the normal rotation here. And DeAndre Hunter didn't end up playing in that game on Sunday, which is so weird to me. Again, so many weird things that happened there. They had a 10-man rotation. It had Vit Krejci for 21 minutes. It had Keaton Wallace for 17 minutes, Garrison Matthews for 11, Larry Nance for 11. But really nothing there. Nothing for DeAndre Hunter, who was a starter to begin this year. Such weird stuff here from Atlanta. I'm not sure what to make of their rotation, so really hard to evaluate. Trae Young, 25 plus points, though, as a potential parlay piece. I think that's intriguing to me. You get De'Aaron Fox on the other side, not so good at the old defense, even though you saw him put up a 60 piece when I took the under of his 37.5 PRA. What can you do? I'm not going to win everything here on this slate or on any slate. Also, I didn't know Domantas Sabonis was going to be out. There's a lot of things that just happen from an injury perspective that I can't predict night before, but what I can do is update you in tails. I can update you if you ask me on X. And Trae Young, 25 plus points, I think is nice, assuming De'Aaron Fox is going to be the only one out there. And Keon Ellis not really finding tons of minutes on the Sacramento side himself. And our last game of the night, my friends. Ooh, what a time to be alive. Golden State taking on the Clippers. The Clippers on a back-to-back. And I think this is really mean of the old schedule makers here to make them force another game here on this back-to-back in LA. Oh boy, they're completely decimating right now, the Utah side. But Utah, one of the worst teams in basketball. I think we can all agree on that. Isaiah Collier had to start that second half because Keontae George is just not getting it done for them. Maybe I was wrong about Keontae George. I liked him out of Baylor. I think he's a pretty decent piece, but not on a terrible, awful, no good, very bad basketball team like we're seeing here on this side. It's just stressful. It's stressful to try to break down every single in and out of every single game, but I think there's something that I can take a little bit of relief in. Steve Kerr is playing massive rotations, and Golden State is only at minus 135 or better on every single book with a 12-man rotation on a day-in, day-out basis. Now, they ended up, it sounds like, avoiding a major catastrophe. Lindy Waters III is actually somebody who matters for this team. Kevon Looney, he's sick. He's questionable as well. But both of those guys, assuming that they're good to go here, you have Curry, who's questionable, but I think definitely plays in this game. It was a left knee bursitis or whatever they were talking about. I think he's just fine to suit up. Hang on one second. Sometimes you got to cough. It doesn't matter if you're on a show doing whatever. But Golden State, friends, so far this season, with Draymond Green at the helm of their defense, they're just finding ways to be extremely, extremely effective. And there is the sad part where, injuries. D'Anthony Melton going to be out here with that knee injury for another couple of weeks. But they have Moses Moody who steps into that starting lineup, who I think is a really, really nice piece offensively here during the course of the beginning of this season. And Steph Curry, he's back to doing Steph Curry things. He's shooting 40% from three on this season, 90% from the line, 61% true shooting, 90th percentile. He's turning the ball over a little more than you're looking for out of your starting point guard day in, day out, if we're going to be honest. But Steph Curry, he's just done this since 2009. He's been one of the best NBA shooters we've seen for nearly 15 years in the NBA, and he will continue to do that against the likes of James Harden on the other side. And I think this is just another schedule maker type situation. You look at Sunday's slate, there's a glaring omission where Golden State is not there. The Clippers, they had to play regardless of the fact that they're blowing out the Utah side. So for me, for my money, I like jumping on these Golden State type style teams where you're super deep, lots of different rotations that you can run, 10, 11 guys. You can find the right combination against the Clippers, try to force Ivica Zubac off the floor in certain spots. Plus, Trace Jackson Davis, his points prop been showing up a little bit more for me, something that I've been betting at 6.5. 6.5, even if it's minus 125, minus 130, I think that's probably going to make the card here against the Vika Zubac-led Los Angeles Clippers. Golden State money line, though, my model loves this, has this nearly minus 155, which is a huge disparity. We're talking nearly 20 cents. Now, Steph Curry, if he doesn't play, I apologize ahead of time, and that is a risk tolerance thing, but I think he plays. There's no way that I would lock this at this number if I thought Steph Curry was not going to play. And as such, my favorite play from Monday, Golden State money line. Let's party. And that does it for another edition of Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Lacks. You know what to do. Go to that comment section below. Let me know your favorite plays on Monday's NBA slate. Tons of stuff. 8 games. Lots of props that are going to be showing up day of here. I'm going to be updating my stuff. Injury news. We're going to have to pay very close attention to that as it's rolling out. Number of different spots. That's something we're going to say a lot throughout this NBA season. I mean, shit, it's only November 18th, people. We got a lot of time, lots of making up I've got to do here over the last 2 weeks as I've gone down a couple of units here over those couple of weeks for you. Let's get back on track here and get back to those first 2 weeks where we were up a lot of units and life was very, very easy and beautiful. I'm done talking. Check out Tails. Check out everything we have down in the video description box below. Thank you, producer Jacob. I'm Eric Lindquist. Best of luck in the NBA streets on Monday.